At last week's Goodmanson Sandhills Lab open house near Whitman, Nebraska Extension beef genetics specialist Matt Spangler presented on the history of beef improvement. The latest inventory of cattle and calves in the U.S. was totaled at 98.4 million head on July 1st. That number was 2% above July 2014 and the first time the July inventory increased since 2006. We talked with Matt at the event and started by asking about past improvements in beef genetics that led the industry to where it is today.
Well, really, we can trace the genesis back to the mid-1930s when performance recording in beef cattle first started at Miles City, Montana, and then also some centralized bull test stations in Texas and commercial herds in New Mexico and California. And if you fast forward that through really the 1950s and 1960s, there were a lot of developments by beef breed associations to start utilizing that data. And really by the mid-1970s, we were starting to produce what we call expected progeny differences, which is really the currency of the realm that beef cattle producers use today.
Why was that such a big improvement at the time?
Well, at the time, before the advent of that, it was all based on visual appraisal, so the show ring kind of thing. You could look at them and try to make an educated guess as to how their offspring might do, but there was certainly no quantifiable science behind it until we started augmenting statistical procedures into genetics.
What do you think are some of the things that the industry has put in perspective now and sort of put an emphasis on?
Well, we certainly see widespread use of EPDs and now including those into economic index values that allow producers to select bulls based on profit potential to their operation. And so really where we are today with those tools is really the result of decades of long work by the industry and by researchers both to get us there. Can
you relate how complicated or complex figuring out things like this are?
You know, it was obviously decades in the making and took partnerships with commercial producers, beef breed associations, pioneers in the seed stock industry, and then quite frankly some of the greatest scientific minds of the time to be able to take together pedigree information, performance data, and through relatively complex mathematical procedures turn it into EPDs that can be easily used.
As you look to the future, what are some of the things that people are working on now or that people could be working on that you kind of hope they are?
You know, really in the past close to 10 years, 5 to 10 years, we've made huge strides in the arena of genomics and are now using that to augment EPDs through a variety of breeds. I think there'll be a lot of evolutions there, particularly with whole genome sequence information, getting absolutely millions of DNA markers per animal, and how we best utilize that to help us in selecting bulls.
What can you use that for, or what could you hope to use that for?
Hopefully we could use that to actually get better or more accurate EPDs on young animals, and hopefully genetic predictions for traits that we don't even think about right now, like disease susceptibility or better predictions for female fertility.
Is it realistic to say that you can focus on things like disease in the future?
I think most certainly. There's a large research effort underway to do that. And what it takes is a group of people that say we want to collect that data and invest both time and money into that discovery. So I think in the future we will see genetic selection tools for things like disease.
For the genomics industry right now, you know, you're looking at an industry that is lower because of multi-years of drought. You're looking at cattle that are getting bigger. Are those two things making cattle breeders do things differently?
Maybe to some extent. The fact that the national cow herd has been low because of drought that you mentioned, I think has increased carcass weight some. So there certainly has been maybe more selection for growth than what we've seen before. I would argue, though, a lot of that increase in carcass weight's been through management decisions, not necessarily genetics. I do think with increased cattle prices, it has allowed cattle producers to sit back and maybe spend money on new technology that before they wouldn't have had the economic resources for. And so I think in some ways that certainly has helped the genomics industry. The other thing we've seen in genomics is prices have gone down. And actually faster than maybe what we would have expected. So all the time the technology is improving whilst also becoming more cost effective for producers to use, and I think that's extremely exciting.